22 days until the first presidential contest in Iowa, and the latest poll shows a tightly contested battle between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. A new Wall Street Journal NBC News Marist poll has Cruz 4 points ahead, but within the margin of error, there's Donald Trump. Trump has been questioning Cruz's eligibility to run for president because Cruz was born in Canada. On Fox News Sunday this morning, Chris Wallace confronted Trump about whether he's trolling Cruz by making his citizenship an issue.
I didn't raise it. The Washington Post raised it. They asked me a question. I said, I really don't know. I know he was born in Canada. I think he was a Canadian citizen, along with maybe he had a joint, but he was a Canadian citizen.
Joint American and Canadian.
He had a joint citizenship. And what I told Ted to do is go into court for declaratory judgment, because, you know, you can't run. I'm talking about from his standpoint, not from my. I did not bring this up. Washington Post brought it up.
I know, but people say you're trolling him, and you're under the guise of helping him, you're sticking in the knife.
No, I'm not. What he should do is ask for declaratory judgment, because you know what?
But he says it's not an issue, and in fact, when you raised it, he posted a video of the Fonz jumping the shark.
Okay, that's just games. Look, that's just games.
I mean, he's kind of laughing at it.
Chris, he's not laughing. He's taking it very seriously. He should take it very seriously. And I don't want, you know what? I think I'm going to win. I don't want to beat him this way. I'm just saying, in my opinion, and you've already seen it, the Democrats are going to bring a lawsuit. If it's Ted, the Democrats are going to bring a lawsuit. He's got to have this thing worked out.
Honestly, do you have any doubts that Ted Cruz is a natural-born American?
I don't know. I really don't know. It depends. Does natural born mean born to the land, meaning born on the land? In that case, he's not. But nobody knows what it means. And it hasn't been adjudicated, and it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court. And I'm only saying this, and I speak well of Ted. I'm only saying that Ted has to get this problem solved, because if he's running against a Democrat and they bring a lawsuit, he's got a hell of a thing over his head.
Doug Heye is a former communications director for the Republican National Committee. You've been a staunch conservative, involved very much in your party and its success for the last 25 years, Doug. And yet you've written an article saying, no way, no how, you're not voting for Trump if he ends up being the Republican nominee.
Yeah, I think the clip that you showed it demonstrates exactly why. The key word that Chris Wallace used was trolling. What we've seen from this campaign is it's a campaign that's trolled the media. It's campaigned other Republicans and Trump opponents for months and months. This week we're talking about where Ted Cruz was born. Before that, we were talking about Hillary Clinton's bathroom breaks, Carly Fiorina's face, Lindsey Graham's cell phone. So what are we not talking about? We're not talking about Donald Trump's plan to defeat ISIS. We're not talking about Donald Trump's plan to grow jobs or the economy, to grow wages, to fix schools, to do all of the things that the government needs to do to get America back to working for the American people.
He says Donald Trump just tweeted out in a just out Fox News poll, I easily beat Hillary Clinton, and I haven't even focused on her yet. Is that an indication that he's already moving forward and he's looking forward to a general election contest?
Well, I think it's real early to do that before you had anybody vote in the Iowa caucus, where he's in, obviously, as you pointed out, a neck-and-neck race. And one of the challenges I think Trump has specifically in Iowa, also in Nevada, is this is very much about organization. New Hampshire and South Carolina, the other primary states, are all about turnout. Iowa's all about organization, getting your people to turn out, but also getting them to stay. We certainly know Donald Trump is a big attraction whenever he's giving a speech, but can he attract people to show up and to stay in Iowa and Nevada when he's not going to be part of that attraction? I think it's a very real question.
You know, let me put it in church terms. It's a lot more fun to go to a revival meeting under a big tent where you have a fire and brimstone preacher in the pulpit than it is to go and hear a mass in Latin where a lot of what you're hearing doesn't make any sense to you. Donald Trump is very charismatic as a speaker, and as you know, he speaks a lot off the cuff. He responds to the crowd. They feel like he's reflecting back a lot of their views. Who can give him a run for his money when it comes to these contests, when we're still seeing in New Hampshire a very strong lead consistently in all polling?
Well, let me first say, as a good Catholic, I enjoy the Latin Mass when I get to go to it,
Right.
But that's a whole other issue, obviously. Look, I think there are a lot of candidates who can give Trump a run for their money. Obviously, Ted Cruz is beating him in Iowa. I think Marco Rubio is somebody who really has a lot of charisma when he speaks and draws a lot of crowds. But there's also one other person who I think is the most important in this equation if Trump is our nominee, and that's Hillary Clinton. And I think a lot of other people do, that a Trump nomination would not just be disastrous for Republican hopes to take back the White House, that they would go away, but also to maintain the Senate. We've got three really key incumbent senators, Republican senators, running for re-election. Kelly Ayotte in New Hampshire, Mark Kirk in Illinois, Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania. They're all in neck-and-neck races right now, and with Trump at the top of our ticket, I think it takes away those 3 Senate seats, possibly costing us the majority, and not just the majority in short terms, but in long terms as well. Republicans have a good bit of leverage right now with a House and a Senate. And that certainly wasn't the case when we had Harry Reid running the Senate. So if we give the Senate back over to Chuck Schumer, we've not just set back the Republican Party and conservatism. We've certainly, I would argue from my perspective, set back the country a great deal, and also the signal that sends to the entire world.
Okay, so then I have a couple questions. Number one, just because you're taking a stand on this and you're saying no way, no how, I'm drawing a line in the sand, the issues that you're raising surely have occurred to Reince Priebus at the RNC, to the people who are in charge of making sure that the Republicans maintain control in the House, particularly. When you're looking forward, what do you expect them to do? Do you expect all of them to stand up and say, we can't have Trump? Hey, Americans who are going to the polls voting, no matter how entertained you are by Donald Trump, we can't have him.
Well, certainly Reince Priebus and the Republican National Committee will support the Republican nominee. That's absolutely their job. And if I were working there, if Donald Trump were our nominee when I worked there, I would be supporting him because that would be my job to do so. But just as an individual voter, and my vote won't have a whole lot of weight voting in the District of Columbia where Republicans don't do well. I have a different mission and obviously a different set of priorities. I think he'd be a disaster for our party. I think he'd be a disaster for the country. I think he'd be a disaster internationally. And I think there's no better example of that than looking at some of the criticisms that have come from our key allies. David Cameron, Boris Johnson, the mayor of London, have been really critical of Trump. And who's praised Trump?
Vladimir Putin.
That should send a message to our voters.
Do you think he's already been a disaster for the party?
I think he's certainly set us back a little bit because we're talking about issues that we don't really need to be talking about. We're talking about things that I don't think are helpful for Republicans. Again, if you're a Marco Rubio or a Jeb Bush and you give a speech talking about economic solutions to try and move the country forward, unfortunately, we don't focus on that speech because Donald Trump made fun of somebody that day. And anytime we react to what Donald Trump made fun of, instead of forcing him to have specific answers on specific questions, we play into Trump's hand. But ultimately, if he's our nominee, Donald Trump will get the one thing that he's really not gotten over these past 6-8 months, which has been real scrutiny. Donald Trump gets a ton of attention. He hasn't gotten much scrutiny. And when the Clinton machine goes after Donald Trump, it will be an absolute Armageddon, I believe, for the Republican Party and, frankly, for the country.
Doug Heye, pretty strong words. Thank you for sharing them here.
Thank you. Anytime.